ये कंटेंट आपको बोला जा रहा है इस टाइम पे, ये कंटेंट लेटेस्ट कंटेंट है। हालांकि एसएससी इस पैटर्न को फॉलो नहीं करता, लेकिन उसने एक बार फॉलो किया हुआ है, इसलिए अपवाद की जगह भी नहीं छोड़ी जा सकती। मैं आपसे ये नहीं कहता कि आप कैलाश चंद मत करो, लेकिन अगर आपको कोई नया कंटेंट मिलता है तो आपको उसको करना चाहिए, उससे गो थ्रू होना चाहिए। कंटेंट जिस दिन भी चेंज हो जाएगा उसी दिन दिक्कत हो जाएगी। अगर कंटेंट का लेवल थोड़ा भी टफ हो गया तो क्या कंटेंट आएगा? ये जो कंटेंट हम यूज़ कर रहे हैं ये 80 और 90 के जैसा का कंटेंट है, जो जितना भी आप यूज़ कर रहे हो। कैलाश चंद की जो मैगजीन है वो 80-90 के आसपास की मैगजीन है, 90 से ऊपर। जो ईयर्स डाले गए हैं वो आप देखना ध्यान से, उसमें उसको कट करके चिपका के डाले गए ईयर्स है। वो अपडेट नहीं किए गए कंटेंट को, बस ईयर्स अपडेट किए गए हैं उसके अंदर। तो कंटेंट अच्छा है, नो डाउट, बहुत अच्छा कंटेंट है। लेकिन अगर कंटेंट लेटेस्टली अपडेट होगा तो कंटेंट आपको यही मिलेंगे, ये सब वर्ड मिलेंगे। दिव्यांगजन है, या फिर जो आज के टाइम में यूज़ किया जाता है मिस्टर डेप्यूटी चेयरमैन की जगह भाई और बहनों यूज़ करता है मोस्टली 2014 से, ये हो रहा है। और जो कंटेंट, अगर आपको, मुझे उम्मीद है, डिजिटल अरेस्ट एक अच्छा वर्ड है। इसके अंदर इससे पहले कल बोला था, ये जो आया था इसके अंदर एक वर्ड आया था अभी, एनसीसी बार बार आया था, एनसीसी के रूल्स आ रखे थे काफ़ी, एल्डरली आ रहा है। वर्ड्स टफ नहीं है, लेकिन अगर आप पैटर्न्स को हल्का भी तोड़ना नहीं चाहोगे तो डिक्टेशंस में 3 वर्ड भी ऐसे आ गए तो आपके हाथ पैर फूल जाते हैं। नए वर्ड आने का मतलब, पिछली बार 1-2 बार आ गया था, स्पोर्ट्स एक वर्ड आ गया था, बार बार स्पोर्ट्स के बारे में आया था, कंटेंट आया था 2 साल पहले की बात है। तो स्पोर्ट्स बहुत बड़ा वर्ड नहीं है, लेकिन जब वो बार बार आता, आप यूज़ करते हो, मिनिस्ट्री यूज़ करते हो, मिनिस्टर यूज़ करते हो, लेकिन वहाँ पे स्पोर्ट आ गया तो वो आपको नया वर्ड लग रहा है, नया कंटेंट लगता है। 4-5 वर्ड नहीं होते के साथ ही कंटेंट नया हो जाता है। तो माइंड में बैरियर नहीं बनाते कभी भी, लेटेस्ट कंटेंट के साथ फेमिलियरिटी रखो। मैं आपको असाइनमेंट इसके हिसाब से कल या परसों में असाइनमेंट भी दूंगा, जो आप बना पाएंगे, उससे रिलेटेड असाइनमेंट कर भी पाएंगे। अगर आप फेस ही नहीं करोगे तो लिखा भी नहीं जाएगा। जब हम फेस करते हैं तो मैक्सिमम क्या हो सकता है, वो एक बार के में नहीं लिखा जाएगा, सेकंड टाइम आएगा कुछ बनेगा, थर्ड टाइम आएगा फिर कुछ बनेगा। इन वर्डों के साथ एक खास बात ये होती है कि जब आप उनको बनाते हो, वो कुछ भी बने हुए हो, वे पढ़े जरूर जाते हैं। अगर नया वर्ड है, अगर आपने देखो ओमिटी कर दिया तो एक अलग बात है, लेकिन अगर आपने उसको बनाने की कोशिश करी है ना, क्योंकि 10 मिनट बाद खुद आपको रीड बैक करना होता है, सबकॉन्शियस माइंड इतना क्लियर होता है, उसको वो रीड आउट कर लेता है। तो इसलिए कुछ ना कुछ बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं। अगर बहुत टफ वर्ड भी आ रहा, मन की बात आ गया, नहीं बना, आपने एम भी बना रखा है ना वहां पे, या कुछ भी बना रखा है, वो आपसे पढ़ा ही जाएगा, आप उसको भूलोगे नहीं। लेकिन ओमिट नहीं करते, ऐसे वर्डों को मेंशन करते हैं। रीड बैक के टाइम पे आप बनी हुई आउटलाइन को रिकॉल कर सकते हो, लेकिन कॉमिशंस को रिकॉल नहीं कर सकते, ओमिशंस, क्योंकि वहां पे कुछ है ही नहीं। तो ऐसे केस में आप कुछ ना कुछ पुट कर लेते हैं, जैसे हिंदी का वर्ड था इसके अंदर मन की बात, और भी वर्ड थे इसके अंदर कई सारे अच्छे वर्ड से। टेक्नोलॉजी का यूज किया गया था, नाम एक वीरेंद्र नाम आया था, लखनऊ नाम आया है, जबकि ये लखनऊ वगैरह वर्ड बड़ा कॉमन है, काफी बार आ चुका होगा, लेकिन जब ये किसी दूसरे रेफरेंस में आता है तो ऑकवर्ड लगता है कि ये किसके साथ आ रहा है जब आप इंट्रोड्यूस करते हो। तो सिंपली है कि मीनिंग में ना जाकर वर्डों के सुनने पे ध्यान देते हैं, जो क्या कह रहा है, क्या भावार्थ निकलेगा, इसका कोई मतलब नहीं होता। मैं सुनते जाओ बनाते जाओ, सुनते जाओ बनाते जाओ, जैसे ही आप मीनिंग में चले जाते हो तो आपसे वर्ड ओमिट होने लगेंगे। उसका मन मतलब सुनना है और लिखना है, भावार्थ नहीं निकालना, मीनिंग नहीं निकालना है उसका। ठीक है, लिखेंगे और 80 पे लिखेंगे। विवेकानंद था इसके अंदर वर्ड, स्वामी विवेकानंद। विकसित भारत एक वर्ड था। ब्लूप्रिंट था। जनरेशन, बाकी सब लगभग फैमिलियर वर्ड्स हैं। रेडी, 80 पे लिखेंगे, टेस्ट नेम सेम रहेगा। स्टार्ट इट। A person who is not dealing in an expert way with a specific subject will naturally go in for generalization. I am not expert, and so I can say many things about many subjects. Looking at this institute from a distance and looking at its publications, it seems to me that it has been making good progress. We have been told that Similar institutes in other countries have begun to appreciate the work of this one. There can be no doubt about the importance of the work which you are called upon to do. I am glad that from a small annual business session, this gathering, taking advantage of the presence of so many distinguished persons who have come here today, will spread out into a conference on a specific subject matter, namely recruitment and training for the public services. I feel that this is something really solid and worthwhile. I am quite sure that it will bear results. It may be that the results are not very obvious, but it will in any case be an earnest discussion of subjects of high importance. I often wonder how we should approach these subjects. There are several possible approaches to them: the technician's approach, the professor's approach, and the man in the streets approach. I believe that most of you who have gathered here are either of the administrator type with actual experience or the professor type. Both types are very important, both having a fund of knowledge at their disposal. It may be said, however, that neither of these two types represents the man in the streets approach. I do not think the man in the streets approach is likely to be well informed or even very helpful. However, it is obvious an important approach because it is the man in the street or the man in the field who counts, because after all it is him that the administration is ultimately meant to serve. You must always remember that aspect. If you do not, you will have no solid ground under your feet. It is worthwhile to repeat this because the administration not only has to be good but has also to be felt to be good by the people affected. That should always be so, but it is necessary in a fully democratic setup because this is being fast developed not only in this country but in many others too. Now, what is self-government? We have a parliament which is sovereign, which normally speaking is elected every 5 years. It is obvious that the vast majority of the measures considered and passed by Parliament are in a way being considered by the 360 million people in the country. If I may say so, the people's representatives tend to function on the basis of a feeling of the general pulse of the people. The latter have got the power to kick out a government or a member after a certain period of time, as it is important to keep the government or parliament in check. Again, there also exists a general feeling or awareness in the people that things are being done according to their wishes or in consultation with them. In fact, they have begun to feel that they are governing themselves. This is only partly true, but it is true enough in the sense that there is a check on the government and also on parliament, and that it can be kicked out if it went too far in any direction. Therefore, it behaves and tries to keep in line with public opinion. By and large, a parliament or a government does what is reasonable without really making a reference to the people, so long as it gives the impression that democracy has been preserved and that people are being consulted, that their wishes are being respected, all is well. But whether they are actually consulted or not is another matter. If they get the impression that things are being imposed upon them, then friction arises. Apart from doing his work, the administrator, whether he is low down or high up in the scale, must give the impression, even if that impression is not 100% correct, that he is working through the public will and carrying it out. Of course, this cannot always be done. The administrator cannot carry out everybody's will, but he must give the broad impression that he is functioning in accordance with the public will, always thinking of public grievances, trying to remedy them and consulting the people. Whether such an impression is created or not depends upon the manner in which the administration functions. It is quite essential in a democracy to create this impression in the interest of both the public and the administrator. Otherwise, democracy rebels, perhaps not immediately, but after a period of time. This applies generally to all types of administrative activities, but it applies more so to work of a social character which affects the people at large in many ways here. ये आपको इंग्लिश डिक्टेशन टेस्ट नंबर 3 @ 80 के नाम से मिल जाएगा। 830 वर्ड है इसके अंदर और 80 की स्पीड है। फ्लेक्सेशन 7 से 8 वर्ड अपसाइड में है। सीन कंटेंट लिखेंगे जो आपको विद कोमा नो कोमा दोनों फाइलों में मिलेंगे। रेडी? आगे आ जाओ भाई, पीछे वाले बच्चे आगे आ जाओ, आगे आ जाओ, तीनों आगे आ जाओ, तुम भी आगे आओ दोनों, इधर आओ, आगे की तरफ आओ। Start it. Sir, we have just heard the Honorable Minister for Revenue and Civil Expenditure tell us the circumstances in which this bill has come before this House. He has also told us that it is one of the very important items of revenue so far as the states are concerned. Till the other day, we had Part B states in our country, and those states used to levy internal customs duties, but after 1st April 2005, under the Constitution, those Part B states which used to levy customs duties were barred, and instead the alternative revenue for the loss they sustained by giving up customs duties under the Constitution was the sales tax. I can say from my personal experience that as far as Rajasthan was concerned, when we gave up the customs duties, we were very much afraid about ways and means of filling up the gap, but it was a matter of satisfaction that during the course of a year or two, by levying this sales tax, we were to a very great extent able to make up that loss which we had sustained by giving up the customs duties. Till the Constitution 6th Amendment Act was passed, the central government had no powers in regard to the passing of laws for the levy of taxes on interstate transactions, but after that act was passed, powers were assumed, and now it is good that the government have come forward with the formulation of certain principles which would guide the imposition of taxes on interstate trade. Under the last amendment of the Constitution, government have taken power to define as to what will be an interstate transaction, and also to prescribe the rates of sales tax to be levied on such transactions. The bill provides that in the case of certain important items, the state governments can impose a sales tax of 2% and not more, while on transactions between registered dealers there would be a uniform levy of 1%. This is what the Honorable Minister said, and that is what has been provided for in the bill before us. One anomaly that we are seeing is that the tax varies from state to state. Before November 1996, Punjab had a sales tax, whereas we in Rajasthan did not have this tax for a long time. Sir, the repeal of the Essential Goods Declaration and Regulation of Tax on Sale or Purchase Act 2002 would mean that articles which are not liable to taxation will be taxed now. The Honorable Minister mentioned about the repeal of this act and further mentioned a number of articles which were essential, but under clause 14 of the bill before us, there are only 6 items which have been declared as articles of special importance for purposes of interstate trade or commerce. The state governments are expected to raise their revenues to meet their expending expenditure. The Honorable Minister has just now said that they are the representatives of the people and that they themselves would see that they do not levy heavy taxes, as otherwise they will become unpopular in their own constituencies and with the people who elected them. Sir, I would like the Honorable Minister to look into the proceedings of the Rajasthan Assembly for the last 2 years. In a hurry to raise more money, they had passed certain bills imposing tax on the sale of certain articles. An agitation took place and they had to change the laws. They added certain more items and then again an agitation took place, resulting in those items having to be dropped again. If we look into the proceedings of the Rajasthan Assembly for the last 2 years, we would find that the original act had been changed so much in the course of this period that it would be very difficult to recognize the original one. So long as there is a one-party government in this country, this sort of argument would not carry weight. When there are two parties equally balanced, then this argument would count, but in the present circumstances, this argument will not count. I would like in this connection to know from the Honorable Minister as to whether government have got power to add any items to the list influenced in clause 14 if they consider that certain states are laying a heavy sales tax on them without, of course, amending this bill. If they have not got such powers, then this will naturally go against the interests of the people. Lastly, I come to the question of food grains. The Honorable Minister referred to the various meetings that seemed to have taken place between the various finance ministers and between the various chief ministers of states. They were very adamant that these items in clause 14 should not be expended. I would submit that the argument which has been given by the Honorable Minister is not convincing. 840 वर्ड है और ये आपको विद कोमा नो कोमा दोनों फाइल मिल जाएगी सॉफ्टवेयर के अंदर। 302 नंबर है, केसी सोर्स है, 80 की स्पीड है। अगर आपने